this is what I've thought about, and you guys can chime in. I think what works really well is like mini games. So a great example of that in StarCraft 2 is the co-op they have, and the co-op is actually it's like a mini game inside of StarCraft, where rather than just like, hey, here's a 2v2 and you versus some AI, it's like, effectively a campaign mission, but rather than you playing as a regular StarCraft faction, you play as a very simplified faction. So you have like a much smaller roster of units. You only maybe have like 4 or 5, 6 units. And the way the macro works, rather than building a marine every 15 seconds for the cost of 50 minerals, you build like, you spend 1,000 minerals every minute, and then it gives you 20 marines. So it takes that macro management of producing units, makes it way more easier. You don't have to expand, so you don't have to like build supply depots, I'm pretty sure. It takes away all those micro chores and all of those complexities, and allows you to just kind of focus more on like an action-oriented game where you're interacting with your teammate a lot more. It makes it like a lot more of an action-oriented arcadey game, but it doesn't then, that's not the entire game, so it doesn't lack the depth to keep you interested in the long run, because then once you sort of go through that early introduction to the more casual game mode, you can then just play the regular StarCraft, which is incredibly difficult. And in Ashes of the Singularity, I mean, we have this like tower defense game mode called King of the Hill, and I think that would work really well as an introductory game mode, because it takes away a lot of the complexity. You don't have to worry about harassment and expansion. It's more just build base defenses and hold out. And I also really loved the in Dawn of War 2, there was the Last Stand, that mini game. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a little different because that was like just a full RPG. It didn't have really any RTS elements, but I think I guess some of the heroes did. You controlled like other dudes, but like I think you could take an RTS game. You don't want to gut out its complexity, because then you're left with no substance. But I think you can take a portion of the game and have that as its own separate thing. And MOBAs do this too. So League of Legends has ARAM, all random or middle, where you don't have to worry about ganking, compositions, roles. You just sort of pick, you get assigned a random hero and you goof around. So I think one way of fixing the issue with RTS, but without compromising the game design, is these introductory casual game modes.
I think I agree with that. I think if you look at the most successful and long-lasting RTS games, they're generally ones that are more of a platform than just a singular mode. Like StarCraft has their campaign, they have the multiplayer, they have Against AI, they have co-op, they have the arcade. Company of Heroes 1 and 2 both had their campaign and multiplayer, and then they also had a variety of other modes. I think Company of Heroes, one of their expansions, even had a MOBA mode.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of it. I know what you mean, though. It was pretty goofy.
And yeah, they have mini campaigns, and they have co-op missions, and Company of Heroes 2 has the Ardennes Assault or whatever, which is another very good campaign. So I think it's obviously much more expensive, and bigger studios can do it better than small ones, but having your game be a platform for a variety of game modes is obviously you create a much bigger net to draw people in with.
I would agree with that. I mean, ideally, if you can swing it, definitely. I think that would be very successful. I think we've actually seen that be successful. Like you said, the Last Stand mode was one of the things my friends and I love to play the most in Dawn of War 2.
Yeah, and it's a good way to introduce people to the game. Like, again, it could be better if it was more RTS-y, but even just the controls. And that's like the RTS controls is something that people are not familiar with. So not only are they learning, how to, like, the mechanics of the RTS, they're also learning about, left click select, right click, dragging a box to select things, the camera. And so you take, which sounds simple to us, right? But it's for people that have never played RTS games before, it's kind of weird. It's sort of abstracted. You don't have that like locked camera in the way that you do in like RPGs and MOBAs. There isn't as much to keep track of. I think the Last Stand, it gets you hooked, and it also introduces you to like the lore. Like, oh, this is an Imperial Guard, this is a Space Marine. So even if you're not necessarily selling them the RTS, even if you're just selling them like the assets of the game and like the lore and like what the heroes do and such. And then because if you want to see more of that hero, well, you can play the actual game and you upgrade your Force Commander to a Power Fist or whatever.